being recorded.
Yes.
Great. Wonderful. Please.
That's good.
Sorry for interrupting.
No, thank you for the prompt, I think. So, friends, Dr. Prashantham is a professor of counseling psychology and director of the Institute of Human Relations, Counseling and Psychotherapy of the Christian Counseling Center, Vellore. He is a distinguished professor of coaching psychology, of course, for the CFI graduates. He's a chairman, Institutional Review Board, CMC Vellore, and founder president of the Association for Psychological Counseling, India and Life member. He is a world-renowned psychologist, professor with 5 decades of professional experience as a trainer and supervisor of many counselors, and especially in the areas like corporate coaching, counseling, clinical work, cross-cultural psychology, as well as in psycho-neuroimmunology. He's a clinical faculty in many international universities like University of Washington and areas of global health, mental health, disaster mental health, and cross-cultural counseling. He served as the head of Department of Cross-Cultural Studies at Trinity Lutheran College in Seattle. He has trained several Microsoft engineers in cross-cultural communication. He is author of a bestseller book called The Indian Case Studies in Therapeutic Counseling, now in 7th edition and being translated into many languages, both Indian and abroad, foreign. He has trained about 50,000 professionals of many fields in counseling skills, methods, and seminars from every state and university in over 50 countries around the world. He has done extensive research. I will come to this a little bit later, like counseling, training, supervision, alcoholism, rehabilitation, MBTI, cross-cultural psychology, disaster mental health, executive coaching, and counseling for social change. I think it's really a long list. He is an honorary fellow of the coaching CFI. He has guided several doctoral candidates in counseling, clinical and health psychology for Indian and foreign universities. He served as the external examiner in many universities. He is a member of the American Psychological Association and its counseling division. His wife, Meena, was a very, literally his right hand, I think our left hand, who was along with him as an associate director at CCC and was a professor of counseling. Now, this is the formal introduction, but when I spent about 45 minutes having a conversation to know him better. And I was amazed. As a very early in life, I think in life, Dr. Prashantham had a very keen interest and was very curious about people. So he was a darling of the family, and especially his grandmother. In school, he was a go-to person for his peers who felt highly supported and encouraged by his, I think, wise counsel, even at that early age. His school principal recognized his skills and made him the mentor of the junior hostel. And these are some of the indicators of what was to happen later in his life. He chose counseling as a very natural, professional, I would say, line of for his, I think, very core expression of who he was. He qualified both in India and abroad. And in his words, he said he soon realized that he was a gold medalist, but with no professional skill. And that's very, very humble statement to make. There's a lot of humility there. He is a patriot at heart. So he returned to his dear motherland and to culturally, because he realized that his qualifications were culturally unsuited to India. So he came to conceptualize and contextualize it in Indian context, make it relevant here. He became a natural choice for heading the counseling center, which was just then starting to take shape. I think his entire focus, as he said, was in building curriculum around experiential learning. I think he brought out several counselors totally committed to field work, and I think he also follows a very scientific approach. He takes a very scientific approach, evidence-based approach, and has documented his experience. Some of his experiences, he was in fact, I don't know how many of you would know, he was invited by Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, Rajiv Gandhi, and Narasimha Rao to be the advisor in the areas of mental health, and especially seeking his help on suicides, drug addiction, and delinquency. He was asked to come up with a special curriculum which became a gold standard for the government. And he had to train several senior people from very prestigious universities like NIMHANS, TIS, and so on, and who further took this curriculum into their institutes. So there's one key part of it is during tsunami, I think he really proved to the government his how he brought about a 70% turnaround, making the people with severe PTSD, that is post-traumatic stress disorder and mental challenges, made them asymptomatic in just 6 months. And I think all this work was highly recognized by then Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. And he soon became a world expert in disaster mental health globally, and was invited to take sessions and teach in several universities. President Clinton greatly appreciated his work in the area of mental health, disaster management, and addiction. So, friends, uh, this is in brief about Dr. Prashantham, okay? And the gentleman who will be bringing the distilled essence of his 50 years of experiential, I would say, expertise to us in this very short time. And so there's a lot to take away for us. Doctor, we are waiting for you eagerly and looking forward.
Thank you so very kind and elaborate introduction you have given, Sharada, that shows the generosity of your spirit. I have always been very appreciative of every opportunity to meet and interact with our friends from CFI because of the learned backgrounds, vast experiences at highest levels in industry and society that you have achieved and are now generously mentoring so many others to become like you. So one of the subsets of my experiences has been interacting with CFI. I believe you have a lot of insights yourselves into the subject we are going to look at. Suresh has rightly pointed out that there is a heightened anxiety at this time all over the world. And so under Charada's moderatorship, we will proceed to take a look at this subject. I want to share 3 points today. And they are, I'm just putting up some slides and just using them as a background. I will proceed to show. One is a situation analysis of what is actually going on. Our subject is this: 5 behavioral ways at the end to deal with heightened anxieties of today. I hope you are able to see these slides.
Yes, doctor.
Yeah, Sharada,
Yes,
thank you.
it's
Thank you.
visible.
After Sharada's introduction, I'm even more feeling like what Sir Isaac Newton said, that he saw himself as a little boy picking up a few pebbles on the shore with so much more to explore and learn every day. And he also said that we stand on the shoulders of others in our journey forward to promote knowledge or its application. So with that spirit, these the three areas are anxiety, a situational analysis of today. Secondly, what are some of the available insights and resources? Not all, of course. We'll keep the time in mind. And finally, you will be able to pick out of the things we discussed, 5 behavioral ways of coping and helping in this situation. This is the essential abstract of what I want to make an effort to share. Um, so if we look at the anxiety situational analysis, what I feel like is that it is so existential, so real to each one of us, that I would like to begin with you in a breakout group straight away before even I say anything, so that your thoughts. Mr. Suresh, are you giving us permission to make the breakout groups?
So you are 1 minute. I can. Whom would you like me to make the host?
Myself. You make me,
Okay.
and my colleague Zenith, who is here, will divide into.
I have made you the co-host for this meeting.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. So we will be in groups of 2 actually, dyads for the next 8 minutes. And before you go, I will show you what you'll be talking about. And let me show you. Let me show this. This is the topic on which we are going to share. There are 2 aspects to it. One is, what are your concerns and worries during the past month related to COVID second wave? Your concerns and worries. The second aspect is paying respect to the person or persons who died, who were known to you, directly or indirectly. So we are going to be in dyads so that everybody gets enough time to talk. And you are going to, each one will have about 3 to 3.5 minutes to talk about these 2 concerns, and then the partner will share. So even allowing for 1 minute extra time, within 8 minutes, we will be back in the room and we'll continue the process. I hope you will enjoy this, because I know you will have important things to share, and we want to start with that. Your concerns, worries, and your tribute to people who may have uh, left us. So any moment now you will find yourself. Yes. In 8 minutes, we are going to come back. So each one will get a maximum of 4 minutes each. And so we are going now. Yes. Please, are they supposed to press something? No, they will find themselves in different.
I think I am back because my participant left or what, I don't know.
So sorry. We will try to see if we can.
No issues, doctor. I think if as long as others are all,
Yes.
there are a few here still.
Uh-huh.
Maybe a few of them have signed on and not there.
Hi, Shraddha. Hello, doctor.
Hello, was.
For some reason, one person joined and he left the meeting. I don't
Same
know.
thing happened for me.
Yeah.
I think some of them have just signed on and probably
I don't know this person by the name Sukesh.
yeah, some Pradeep also.
Sukesh Kumar was I have never heard about him.
No, because there are others also have been invited here, other than coaches also.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's okay.
Is it raining in Vellore, doctor?
It's not raining, Sharda, here, but I heard that from Madurai it is raining over there. Yes.
Hello, Ganesh.
Hello,
You're
hello,
muted.
Ganesh.
You're
Ah.
muted, Ganesh.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening to you.
Was there any? The session has started, no?
Yeah, they're in breakout
Yes.
sessions.
The first breakout session is
So
happening.
was there some constraint of 100 or something? Has it been sorted
Yeah.
out?
Yeah, it's still there. I think we don't know it's sorted out or not because a few have dropped out. So number.
Okay. All right. I'll check with Suresh and come back.
How much time? Yeah. So in about 2 minutes, 40 seconds, everybody will be back and then we'll continue.
Is it Sangeeta?
Yes, ma'am.
Just hi, I said.
How are you doing, ma'am?
Good, good. Quite a few are still appearing here, no?
Yes, ma'am.
I think they have not got into breakout rooms.
Yeah, it's
You're
people are
muted.
still getting assigned. Yeah.
Oh, it's still happening. I think time is.
Yeah, it is still happening.
We'll do. We have just about 1 minute, and then I think they will be
Back.
Yes. That is next record. So, time is up. We'll close now. Huh? Oh. So close this. You are having it now? So about 23 seconds more, and we are going to be all back and proceed. All are back. Both. Okay. So friends, welcome back. And all whom I can see on the screen, I want to greet you again. Welcome back, not only from the breakout session, but welcome to the program itself. And I'm going to proceed to Mr. Suresh. Suresh, if you can hear me, if you can make Zenith the co-host, he will be able to do the next breakout group when it comes. Okay. So I will proceed now with where we left off. So we were looking at the subject and 5 ways finally how to deal with these anxiety situations. I said this is divided into 3 parts: anxiety situation analysis, what are the available insights and resources, and what are 5 behavioral ways of coping that you will decide at the end. So we just finished this breakout groups. Now I want to show you a very quick view of the last 6 conversations I had this past week with people out of dozens and hundreds of such. But what I found, my situational analysis based on the ground interactions is...
Sorry to cut in, doctor. Can you have it in the slide presentation mode, please?
Slide presentation.
Yes, because it's just very small. Yeah,
Very
yeah,
small.
yeah, like this.
No,
Yes, yeah, like
Mr. Sumitra Chakravarti. Thank you
Yes.
for. Now, is it better?
Yes, it's definitely better. Thank you
Perfect,
so much.
perfect. If any
Yes.
such adjustments, we'll be only too happy to do. And so you can see in the left side column, and you would have noticed in your own experiences in what you shared in the breakout groups, similar situations. Now, if you start from the top, a senior social worker is simply overwhelmed by the number of deaths that are happening, not only among his relatives, but among his friends and acquaintances. So he froze and he was finding it difficult to function. He called me and I tried to listen, be present, encourage him to take leave from work. He needed a break, be off from official calls, rest and resume. For 3 days, he did that and came back and started working again, slowly working out his sadness and sorrow. Another senior manager, 23 anxious days of her hospital colleague. She was working as a manager in a hospital. They know each other for 30 years. For 23 days, this person is in ICU and passed away on May 30th. I'm talking about 5 days ago. Crying, missing. What do you do? Attempted to listen, inquire, prepare, stand by, encouraged to connect to other people, to grieve. But one of the sad lessons of that was this individual who passed away refused to take vaccination, though it was available. Then I went to a bank, and the bank manager, while I was writing the check, put his right hand on his chest, left side, and he said, "Sir, I'm having some difficulty breathing and also little pain. Am I having a heart attack? Am I suffering from COVID?" So I stopped writing the check and I said, "Sir, please have a seat. How long have you been having it and how severe it is? I'm not competent to actually give you a definitive answer on what it is. To me, it doesn't look like either heart attack or COVID, but it is better to get a teleconsultation from a medical doctor. And I know several. I'll call one. If they're not free, I'll call another right now." And we connected them. After the conversation, the doctor told him, "You are not having any heart attack. You're not having any COVID symptoms also. What you need to do is to just try to relax a little bit." And it was true that many of the staff were not working that day. He was overwhelmed. But he is from Uttar Pradesh and living in Tamil Nadu for the last few weeks, doesn't know any doctor yet. And he was in a dire difficulty. And then and he was happy and relieved and took some time off and is fine now. And so things of this nature. And another young psychologist going to be married in less than a month. Entire family became COVID positive. Grandparents, parents, and sister. Grandfather, in addition, got paralyzed. They recovered from COVID, except the stroke of the grandfather. He can't move at all or speak properly. But finally, he tells her 3 days ago that he's glad to see her marriage and then he will die. He will give up. He's 87. Now here there was a situation where this young lady was so happy to see her grandfather, concerned about her, but very sad that he is talking about death. So her struggle was to accept the possibility of death for him. he may be having a premonition also. He wants to give his blessings. He is going to hold on till then and then die. Hospitality industry. On May 25th, this manager's grandmother died. Next day, mother died. She could not go for the funeral. And she sends a message saying, "Am I not an orphan now? There is no future in hospitality industry. I want to start searching for something which will give me meaning in a different way." And this is the nature of conversation. Then here with my own administrative staff, several were refusing to take vaccination. So the discussion was more around their fear. And some of it was anecdotally very sensible. In their village, they saw on the other street a person who took vaccine and then a few days later died. So they connected vaccine and death and scared about vaccine now. So finally, by giving some facts and information, now all of them by this afternoon have taken. And, so if you look at personal tragedy and trauma, this is only a tip of the iceberg. That's why I asked you to share first what you are thinking. Then, if you look at the newspapers, now I'll just show you, where is that letter? Last time when I spoke at the CFI, I casually mentioned, what should the Prime Minister also do? Because what I meant by that was, what should the government do while each individual does their part? So after coming back, I was inspired to write a letter to him with a sense of sensitivity that he doesn't, particularly like to be criticized too much, because there is quite an overdose of it from many quarters. So I wrote a very carefully worded letter, and in which basically I mentioned to him that, thank you for all that you are doing, but at the same time, there is unfinished, immediate, near future and long-term steps that are needed. Appreciate that these be done on a war footing. And the 5 things are oxygen, drugs. You see the date, May 9th. Vaccinations, economic support to the vulnerable, and improvement of infrastructure of the health system. If these go hand in hand with individual and community efforts, we are going to see. Now, since then, I have been looking at the developments. And I find that oxygen supply has increased. I don't claim any credit for my letter, but what I'm saying is, this is the trend we are seeing. Government called all the pharmaceuticals and told them, we were caught on the wrong foot in the second wave. For the third wave, you better be ready and stock. So that is going on. And happily, DRDO's drug also is launched for emergency use, which is a great credit to the research capabilities of our country. 2 billion vaccines have been ordered, and topically, Supreme Court is engaging the government on finding out what the exact details are. But there seems to be a realization that this is a must and it has to move as briskly as possible. Hopefully by December, according to them, and this will be achieved. So then we found there are online mental health services happening, listening circles, are gathering virtually every week to talk about the impact of COVID on lives. Health infrastructure is being closely looked at. And certainly you are beginning to see a early start of cases dropping and deaths dropping. And if you see this, you will find that you can see how the second wave is now showing a downward trend. And just take a look at this. Less than 20% of disabled people are willing to take jabs because of the bad experience they had. Another news is that AIMS says that no deaths among those reinfected with COVID-19 even after vaccination. Now, this doesn't rule out that there are exceptions to this. And there is just one more thing I want to show is that, where is that video? Yeah. I'm just going to show you very quickly a laser technology based how do these respiratory pathogens travel has been captured using laser technology. You may have seen this before. If possible, I will open it and JAMA is the Journal of American Association of Medicine. What is invisible to the eye has been captured. So you can see that it is now traveling to about 20 inches, 50 centimeters. Then you can see now what is happening, and the importance of masks become all the more critical, especially outside the house, but even inside if there are people who are affected or suspected to be affected. This is 43 inches to extent to which these particles have gone. And this is 7 to 8 meters. I didn't realize till I saw this as another doctor shared this with me. So having seen that, let us take a look at a very brief summary of psychosocial stresses that are going on. You can see them in terms of psychosocial stresses that are arising out of just the global reality of COVID pandemic. By reading and hearing news about this, which leads to virtual trauma. And a pandemic of misinformation also that is making rounds in the social media and the associated panic. So there are stresses related to just being in this context. Then number two is the stress and dysfunction among those infected and affected. Suppose I got COVID illness, anxiety, insomnia, depression, psychosis are all being seen. There are also differences between frontline workers and others. Frontline workers are experiencing some of these more. But in terms of psychiatric morbidity and physical challenges of those who are ill, there seems to be bidirectionality for this. Some who are already psychiatrically troubled will have, certain types of challenges, and those who are developing afresh. But all this is complicating grief. If, like my friend from this hospitality industry says, I could not go for my grandmother and mother's funeral because no flights, no travel, and the hospital also didn't allow for a proper funeral with all the rituals. There are complicated grief, anxiety, insomnia, dementia. And the second wave definitely is much more severe from what studies are being done. And you can see Dubey, Das, Pratap Tarian, Soumya Swaminathan, WHO Chief Scientific Advisor. These are some of my sources of information. Interventions, population level, global initiatives, mobilization of personal support, online help, professional assistance are noticed, but longitudinal studies are yet to take place and much to learn about individual and community-based interventions. This I have already shown. We have seen coughing and sneezing. This also we have seen, and they're talking about things like this. So let us go into the second aspect now, available insights and resources. From following the chapter communications, I could see that, last time we were talking about languishing, this time some are talking about flourishing, and various insights, reflections. I find it very educative. I think our CFI wonderful group is doing a lot of thinking and already very knowledgeable, because of that, this part will be easy for me because and that is why, based on what you have studied and are reflecting upon, I want to invite you into the breakout group 2 now, where the point that I request you to share with each other in 7 to 8 minutes, that is 3 to 4 minutes each, is what behavioral changes or adjustments you made to cope with corona related situations in your life already, based on your own reflections. Then I will show you more than a dozen possibilities, and we'll move towards conclusion as to which 5 of those may appeal to you. But right now, based on your own thoughts and studies and reflections, what behavioral changes or adjustments have you made to cope with corona related situations in your own life to bring down the anxiety? So my colleague, Mr. Zenith, is putting you into dyads. So you will be with another partner. Share for 3 to 3.5 minutes on what behavioral changes or adjustments have you made to cope with corona related situations in your own life. Yes.
Ma'am, are you
Yeah,
able to join?
I joined somebody and they, I think, came out, so I had to.
Okay. I think you can try, at the bottom corner, that breakout button is there. So there, if you click, you can join. And okay.
Hi, Zenith.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can you listen to me? Actually, the breakout room, the other person, I
Right,
don't
sir.
think there was somebody there because he was not responding. He or
Okay.
she was not
What?
responding. It
Acha,
was a number
what? Okay. Okay.
1074, like this kind of a number was there.
All right. Then what I will do is I will try to put you with another person. Just see if you can interact with that person. Okay.
Sure.
Um, sirs or ma'am, you were able to discuss and came back, or you didn't get the partner?
So friends, thank you for taking part. If somebody missed getting connected, sorry for the technological difficulties. But nevertheless, one thing nice about our type of work is we can do self-talk also, right? When we can't talk with somebody. But now we will go forward as fast as we can to look at a few of the remaining things. I trust that your own sharing was rich enough that what I so what we are now looking at is the second is what are available insights and resources in the field. There are many, and you know many already. So some which you know, some which you may or may not have heard. I will share with you what I have come across. Out of them, selected a few. One of them is the concept of flourishing in positive psychology. There's a beautiful article, and I believe some of you have also connected with the University of Pennsylvania, where they offer a course on the science of well-being. And through these, here, just to highlight what it focuses on is, this is based on Seligman's idea that has been evolving. See, we can probably agree that a plant which is healthy and blooming can be said to flourish. So with that type of a metaphor, and a business that is booming and raking in record profit is flourishing. But what does it mean for a human being to flourish? Some might think it is a financial success. Others might think it is self-development and growth. You might believe that a person is flourishing when she is happy and content, or when she is learning new things and applying her skills to new challenges. As it turns out, all of these definitions are right, or at least partly right. Flourishing is a multi-dimensional construct, meaning it's made up of several important parts, and maximum flourishing can only happen when a person experiences a healthy level of each dimension of this. And research on positive psychology, mental health, they talk about two interesting spectrums. One is the mental health illness spectrum that DSM-5 talks about. But there is another spectrum which is called mental health flourishing. One can be diagnosed with mental illness but still flourish. And one can be diagnosis free but still languish. Even if we could find a cure from mental illness tomorrow, it does not mean that most people will be flourishing in life. We cannot treat our way out of the problem of mental illness. We must also promote a life of balance in which people can achieve happiness and realize life. So if one were to follow flourishing principle, they will miss less days at work. There will be lower helplessness, more clear goals, higher resilience, intimacy, lower risk of cardiovascular, chronic physical diseases, fewer health limitations, lower healthcare utilization, and stuff like that. So this is the flourishing idea. The second idea, is what Kubler-Ross, one who, like Viktor Frankl, had also been part of the Hitler's tragic approach to human beings. And then she pioneers in this whole idea of dying and grieving, and even our Sara concept comes out of this. So ultimately, a person may go through shock, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then come out. No two people go through this in the same way. And therefore, the biggest challenge in skill is how to individualize and customize this broad concept to help people. and to recognize within ourselves what we are going through in times of loss and grief. And here, people are trying to help one another by, somebody has grief and groceries all shared in this fight. Virtual memorials, going beyond grief. Then there is the other concept that Dr. Amit Sood has been proposing from Mayo Clinic. It consists of 9 components of resilience. First is confidence. For all these, one of the questions he asks is, are we like this most of the time? Or there are many times we are not like this. Based on that, he says everybody can grow, even if we have the highest marks on this test. Confidence, patience in day-to-day life, optimism, which is promoted by, even in difficult times, think about the good times as well. We used to do that in tsunami, ask people after some time, when was it you faced some difficult time and how did you cope with it? Gratitude for each day, for each of the things that we are able to control, while there are things we cannot control. Acceptance of what cannot be changed, but taking responsibility for what can be changed. Kindness to other people, which is difficult to do when we are ourselves in great distress, but to try to do that. Have a sense of purpose in what we do and be willing to forgive so that the energy caught up in grudges is dissolved and available for living. Connecting to people, which is different from being with a lot of people around. You can be in a crowd and be lonely. You can be with 2 or 3 and be deeply connected. So this is also available freely on the internet. I hope you will take a look at second resource. Some of the other things, as I was looking at, is to recognize that there are varieties of responses in a disaster. And to understand the neurobiology of anxiety, that is how our sympathetic nervous system gets into that emergency mode, and to relax. Gastroenterology and anxiety are closely connected because 80% of our immunity is in our gut. And the gut health and mental health are closely correlated. So some people's anxiety may be arising from there. And how we perceive things, how we interpret things, our own cognitive distortions influence our emotions, behavior, and anxiety. If somebody had a bad experience in the past and that comes up and fears, anxieties come, whereas they may not be real in the here and now. And the recognition that it is normal in extraordinary circumstances to be anxious. There is some normality about what people are going through. But dysfunctionality causes, gives us room for concern. How to help people overcome that. A lot of inner strength is there. There are a lot of studies on how disability and positivity go together. Economic impact, you know better than me, how horrendous it has been and is likely to continue to be for some time. So as we look like this, and how do we then deal with what are some holistic interventions? When we observe signs and symptoms and see that things are going on in a week or in a month, more often than not, we are anxious. More than 4 days a week throughout the month, then only some concern needs to be exercised. And some people have demonstrated that use of aroma can calm people down, especially lavender, I believe. And there is a whole science behind it. And the wonderful thing is, only sense of smell goes to the temporal lobe directly. And that is where amygdala is located. Hippocampus is located. Therefore, the impact on our emotions, our memories become very powerful, and quickly we can reduce our anxiety. Diet and anxiety are also connected in the sense of a healthy diet is likely to produce less anxiety. People have found mindfulness meditation very helpful because it brings us back into the present from past worries or future worries. And relaxation is whatever form or shape it takes. For some it is music, for some it is walking, for some it is seeing a movie, whatever it may be, or conversations, hobbies. For some it is reaching out to others. Then we think less about ourselves and be concerned about other people. Rumination is something that is normal and that happens in anxiety. If we become mindful of our rumination, we can stop it and start ruminating about more positive things, more hopeful things. Otherwise, this rumination kicks us into a cycle of heightened anxiety. Lack of sleep can cause anxiety and vice versa. So sleep hygiene is very important. Changing self-destructive thoughts, and when these thoughts become too many, that is when professional help will be needed. And I believe there are some computer games, mathematical games that can help anxiety reduction also. And we have seen in other catastrophic situations around the world, group support and group therapy being very helpful, support groups. And this has been found so powerful in Africa, for example, when after the Rwanda genocide, people were sent to Western countries for immigration and sent to individual homes by themselves. They became worse and more depressed in the best of material comforts. When re-examined, it was found that we would rather be comrades in distress and in company find support. So the whole immigration policy changed in Sweden through that study, and people were brought to live together in a small community. That reduced anxiety arising out of disasters. Physical exercises are very important in whatever space that one has, even in the house to go about, or any other ways one can. Acupressure points are very promising. They can, within a minute or two, bring down a lot of anxiety if you press at the right points. This is similar to some of the Ayurvedic views. And control of social stimulus or boundary setting is very critical. You see, while taking biological and psychological interventions, one also needs to deal with how much news shall we watch, how much social media to be looked at. Is it better to routinize and have only a certain time and place when you will look at it, not in an addictive way that a lot of people do? We cannot control the news, but we can control hearing about it. As I mentioned earlier, it has been found in 9/11 also. A lot of people who are not there in New York were also getting post-traumatic stress reactions because They were frequently watching the towers fall again and again and again and again in CNN, CBS, BBC, what have you. So control of social stimulus through the media will also be a source of big help and boundary setting. Now, one of the things that I emphasize is that anxiety can be reduced if we have scientific information. So I place before you what CMC hospital uses at the present time, at the present level of evolved understanding. These things are changing. So this talks about what are the usual duration of symptoms: mild, moderate, severe. Mild is 1 to 7 days, moderate 8 to 12, severe 12. What are the clinical features of mild, moderate, and severe? What are red flag features? When do additional investigations are needed? What is the level of care at home, at ward, and when it is severe? And you're finding that this black fungus and all these things are happening because of indiscriminate use of antibiotics, steroids, and unnecessary use of other tests. It is so I found in my own sense of self-understanding in this COVID situation and helping hundreds and thousands of people over phone, I keep this chart in front of me and reiterate scientific facts on the strength of experts. There is a book called the Anxiety Phobia Workbook, which shows some very interesting things: positive feelings, negative feelings, how to foster positive and reduce the negative. And they show how relaxation, exercise, coping with panic, imagery, desensitization, self-talk, mistaken beliefs, focus on feelings, assertiveness, self-esteem, nutrition, medication also when necessary, and meaning and spirituality for different types of anxieties that they talk about. And a lot of people have predisposing conditions which can get exacerbated during COVID. So it has been found different patterns. Some 70% in European countries remained very strong, and then some of them started suffering anxiety. There were others who started with high anxiety and getting better. Some were deteriorating, about 11%. Despite all these, they need specialized help from doctors and psychiatrists. And while making changes, I find this Atomic Habits book quite interesting. And what they say is even 1% change a day can lead to remarkable results. A lot of people seem to make genuine efforts to change in a big way, fail and give up. But one of the important things to keep in mind is, even if whatever you want to change, divide it into 10 parts and start it with one. One example they give is, if somebody wants to reduce social media exposure, then make one day free from that. Instead of saying every day I'm going to cut so many hours and then end up running behind at every turn and opportunity. Over a period of time, these changes will increase. I would like to now invite you into third breakout group, but this time we'll give less time, about 2.5 minutes each. So in 5 minutes, we will finish. This third breakout group is, in the light of whatever you have heard, whatever struck you, what additional up to 5 small steps you will take to flourish and be resilient going forward, whatever they may be. They may be things that you're already doing, or things that you want to do and would now actually do it, even in small steps. In 5 minutes, we are going to come back. 5 minutes. So that means each person will get 2.5 minutes. I'm requesting Zenith to send us into the group. And once you come back, we will conclude the program. And of course, Sharada will have the last word.
Sir, since you are
Friends, welcome back. I now to conclude then our conversation so far, and I'll hand over then to our moderator. Here is, where is that? Okay, you can see this Rigvedic prayer that I have written it down, and I will just play that for you. Just those 4 lines sung by a former student of mine who now works in Bhubaneswar with large number of COVID patients, counseling them. And this is what she was sharing with me the other day. You may not be able to hear, so we are just adjusting and hope this time it will work. Otherwise, obviously, just read it. Now they will.
ॐ त्र्यम्बकं जजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव वन्दनानं मृत्योर्मोक्षीयमामृतात्.
Okay, so done. You may be very familiar with this Rigvedic prayer. What I'm trying to say from my point of view is that we are going through a real tough situation, like a deluge. But there is also a rainbow looking at us from the other side, which doesn't undermine the challenges that are left, but it also is not pessimistic to the point of destruction. There is going to be hope, there is going to be the possibility. And in this prayer, what I picked up was, on the one hand, we will all strive to flourish, to be resilient, do our part, reach out in the best way we can, but also accept the inevitable for some. That can happen. Therefore, from a counselor's point of view, I find my job as helping people to live fully, as well as, if and when it becomes inevitable, die with peace and dignity. And people need to be garlanded while they are alive. That is the encompassing philosophical underpinning there. But I wish each of you a very healthy time from now on. I hope that if you were stimulated in some way to reiterate or validate your own thinking or add any aspect, that you will find more peace and the ability to reach out and bring cheer to someone else also. And thank you so much for your patience. And I want to thank my young colleague here, Zenith, who has helped me with technology. I'm illiterate, truly so. And but he saves the situation for me. And I want to hand over to Sharada.
So it's a wonderful, as usual, a lot of takeaways and points in this, what you shared thus far, Doctor. So I have a question here. Are we open? Is there time for question answers? It's already, I think, 7 p.m. So are there any questions? Would people like to ask? How many more minutes can we hold on? Suresh, anything on this time-wise?
I don't think there's a limit. So maybe 3-4 questions. Let's take up, I think.
Okay. So I will start with one fundamental question, Doctor. How would you define anxiety? It has its range, right?
Yes, anxiety's definition, it has several components to it. One is the feeling component. The other is the physical component.
Okay.
you sweat, your heart beats faster, your digestive systems, slow down. All these things are happening there. Then you are becoming apprehensive, losing control over things and all this. So this psychophysiological reaction that we have is actually intended to be a blessing for us, because of that anxiety we'll act to protect ourselves from danger. However, when this anxiety becomes inappropriate to the proportion of the situation that we are facing, or continues for longer duration, where most of the time we are anxious. So some anxiety is normal and necessary, but excessive anxiety, which particularly imperils or interferes with our functioning, day-to-day functioning, that is when it becomes a disorder.
Anybody else? Any questions out there?
I had a question.
Yes, Rajendra.
The next step or next stage of anxiety is depression, where people don't want to open up, don't want to say anything, or don't want to share their feelings. So what should be done in that case? Actually, generally people who is facing depression don't want to say anything, don't want to open up. Okay, they want to remain alone, they want to remain with their own problems. So in this case, either go to doctor and get them medical help, or is there any other way to counsel them and bring them out from the depression?
Yes, sir. So just like anxiety, depression also is meant to be helpful to us by slowing us down. However, when there are issues of experiences of loss, particularly, it's a kind of a sorrow that turns inward, and we want to have that privacy and disinterest outside. Out of the various criteria given by DSM-5, the most important is disinterest. Along with that, like you said, withdrawal, and sometimes appetite getting affected, sleep getting affected, these things exist. Now, when this happens, there are degrees of depression. In the milder forms, a person can meet another good friend and talk things out, and they will be out of it fairly soon. So one is the making efforts to reach out and share. And for those who want to help, very politely, respectfully, respecting their privacy also, offer to be present and walk with them so that they may open up. Now, one of the things that a person suffering from depression needs to understand is the very thing they don't like to do may be very good for their health. So we tell oneself and others, when you are depressed, don't act according to your feelings. Act almost opposite to it. You want to withdraw, you make it a point that day to reach out. If not in a long way, at least 5-10 minutes. You want to harm yourself? Well, you have a choice not to do that also. So if through normal methods of relationship, listening, being listened to, some people will come out of it in a little time. Many times, even in the loss of loved ones, people come out of this within, even according to our customs. First 3 months are very acute. Then within a year, a lot of people recover from social support they get in the family and surroundings. Different individuals have different issues. So then when this continues for weeks and weeks, then that person may need a professional assessment. If self-harm and kind of issues are there, a family doctor can help. So medication also helps to increase serotonin, dopamine, whose deficit in the brain causes depression. And depression is so endemic now that is being considered as the #1 factor for morbidity among all the non-communicable diseases, and a lot of loss, trillions of dollars of loss in economy because of their talents are not being able to be used. But the good thing is most of them can recover quite a bit. My studies indicate that more than 80% of the people will recover. And so a combination of human presence, support, encouragement, engagement, and then going into counseling in a professional way. And then beyond that, even getting medication according to the need of these individuals. But there is much hope for them to recover. Mr. Rajendra? Okay.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sharda, I can see a few hands raised up.
Yeah, so anybody would like to, there's a question on the chat box also, so I'll hold that for a...
I had a question.
Satish is there.
Yes, can you, Satish?
Yes, good evening, doctor. Thank you for the session. So you had put in a lot of problem, there is one chart you had put in on one of your slides, the problem effectiveness chart, where you had put in a lot of anxiety disorders.
Yes.
So how does one identify, how do we seek help of certain, do we need to find this, whether we are having such kind of this problems? If so, how do we reach out to, whom we reach out to find this kind of thing?
So, when it comes to anxiety, like any condition, some of it is genetic. Some of it is learned. Some of it is due to circumstances in which they are. Each individual's unique situation. And some anxiety will lead to greater productivity. Beyond a point, it starts to have diminishing returns. So it is when the three things to keep in mind is if it is prolonging for a long time, 2-3 months, and it is interfering with your work. So one is duration, one is dysfunction, another is distress. It is causing a lot of pain to you, pain to an individual. That is when professional help is needed. Otherwise, having a small group of supportive friends, talking over with them, and even self-help measures like stopping rumination can dramatically change people. And even other components of a healthy life like exercise, sleep can also help in this. When these things fail to help, one can take temporarily some medication. So your first line of approach is friends and family. Then your colleagues, professional friends. Then when there is no response to that or improvement or there is deterioration, then move to, now the book that I showed you from where I took that part, it's a self-help book, basically.
Okay. Can you repeat that book, please, name?
Sure, sir. I can. That is Workbook on Anxiety. It gives a lot of exercises for you to even identify your anxiety, what level it is, what type of intervention is appropriate. See, relaxation, mindfulness, meditation can also bring down anxiety significantly. When those things don't work, then we need to go one step higher.
Sure. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Overall, it is highly treatable. Yes, sir.
We have Sudarshan Sadasivam who has raised his hand. Would you like to unmute and?
Yeah. Good evening, Doctor.
Good evening, sir. Good evening.
I'm talking to you from Dubai.
Oh, right.
One of the major impacts of this lockdown and Corona has been children. Really.
Yes.
And they've been when they age, especially the teenagers, I would say, when they need to go out to physically be and making friends and doing all sorts of social interaction, which actually probably sets their character later and personality later. They've been locked up.
Yes.
How would be, because it's on such a mass scale, maybe everyone would not be, most of them would not have access to professional help. It's parents and, like you said, friends and the immediate network. What would you advise the parents to, how would you advise the parents to handle this?
Sir, this is a very good question and a very real one that people are facing. So what I would do is, with all the limitations that are there in whatever I am saying, number one, to expect them to be restless and engage with them in a conversation that would help to develop a semi-structured program for the day. What would you, under these circumstances, when you have a life ahead of you, you don't want to, contract this and get into trouble and you cannot go out or limited go out. So how do we organize your time that would be enjoyable? And if it takes into account about half a dozen activities that they would like to do, which are not unhealthy, but the very act parents have asked them for suggestions makes them more responsible. The problem is they are frustrated, they cannot go out. On top of it, if somebody is dictating something, they will come out with a rebellion in such full force that it becomes uncontrollable and causes more anxiety. Don't you think so, sir?
Absolutely right. You're right. Yeah.
You remember in the 60s when the hippie movement came, parents were going to psychologists and asking them, what do we tell them about cutting the long hair? So psychologist said, don't tell them to cut the long hair, tell them grow some more. They will disobey and cut it short.
Reverse psychology.
So to engage them, make them friends, but give them chance to even be creative in movement and games of nature that are stimulating and programs that will be enriching and use of media without getting addicted to it.
Okay.
That is what I could briefly say.
Thank you.
You know better, I think. Yes.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you.
I think we'll take two more questions. So we have Navjit who has raised his hand. Would you like to unmute and ask?
Yeah, so my question is, what's a myth about anxiety? Like, how can we identify that this is not anxiety and this is anxiety?
So, if it is short-lived, if it has a reason for it, let us say that, somebody is standing on the side of the road and suddenly somebody comes with a rash driving and moves very closely to this pedestrian. And that person gets really shocked and becomes very anxious and stays that way for an hour or two. Now that would be considered quite normal. It would be worrisome if he doesn't get panicky. Therefore, for a normal reaction to an abnormal situation is not considered pathological.
Okay.
Whereas if for no reason somebody is making a big fuss or exaggerating, then there may be a problem, and one will be encouraged to look at their distorted thinking. For both depression and anxiety, examination of one's thinking patterns will be very useful. For example,
Okay.
if I had a bad experience in the past and I'm now looking at the present situation and projecting it on here, but there is no actual danger here I'm worried about, then what I'm doing is projection.
Okay.
And if 3-4 of us are there and we are talking about something and everybody takes it calmly, but I only take it to the nth level of its seriousness and catastrophic consequences, then you can see that I am exaggerating that negative outcome. Every minute, every day, all of our brains are producing 60,000 thoughts. And one of the persons, so what happens is paying attention to every thought and taking it very seriously also causes anxiety. So one of the things we teach people is not every thought and not every feeling is a fact. You don't have to put a, some thing to catch the clouds. Let them go. Deal with what is relevant. Be selective.
Okay.
So these are the ways in which we can. But if it persists and pains and interferes with day-to-day life, and that is when we reach to the profession.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nauji.
Meaty, somebody by that name who has posted a question in the chat box. Would you like to come up and ask, unmute and ask Meaty? Yes, I see you're unmuted. So would you like to ask? Can't hear you. Hello?
Yes.
He has network problems. Maybe, madam, you can read it.
Okay, I will. Okay, so I'll just read it out. The question is, I came across 2 patient teenagers who say my mind has been blocked and I'm stuck in between whatever I do, even while watching a movie. The question is it cause of anxiety?
Please read that question again, ma'am.
I came across 2 patients, teenagers, who say my mind has been blocked and I'm stuck in between whatever I do, even while watching a movie. So is it a cause for anxiety?
It may be, or it may be something else also. So it may be something that will just go away soon, or it may be something that needs to be dealt with, and they will be able to come out of it. But therefore, what I would say is to watch for, since when has this happened? In what circumstances is this happening? And is that intensity increasing? Is it affecting their functioning? If so, one can easily get evaluated for that without just labeling anything at this moment, what it might be or what it might not be. And when the person, when the questioner is saying, I came across 2 patients, teenagers, meaning what kind of patients are these?
I think she's not able to come because of poor network. There are no more details other than that.
Sure. So what I would say is there is somewhat insufficient information to draw an inference, but we can get more data based on which we can pose some hypothesis around.
So there's a lot of anxiety about non-availability of vaccine and for the family, self and family. So I think probably one last liner on this quick.
So here one really feels with the questioner, who I think Mr. Arun Mishra has asked this question, if I understand it right.
Yes, sir, right, sir.
I'm so sorry to hear this, this kind of thing is happening in a country like ours. It is a cause for anxiety, no doubt about that. So all that I can say at the moment is convert that anxiety into some constructive action, separating between what you can do now, what you cannot do. Start focusing on what can be done, including using influence to get access to vaccine. As you saw earlier in the program, I felt that it's a systemic deficiency which causes a difficulty for individuals. There is a responsibility for our leaders to work on it, and heated debates are going on, and one gets the sense that some efforts are happening. But right now in Tamil Nadu, where I'm speaking from, until day after tomorrow, many places vaccination has been halted because they are not available. So our chief minister is also trying to get from wherever he can get. We just have to encourage those efforts and hope those will happen. But I don't blame you for feeling anxious. But if you concentrate on the idea that if you continue to feel very anxious, will that help? If not, what can you do to conserve that energy towards actions and activities? But some anxiety is inevitable.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amma Sharda, you are muted.
So there is one more question. Do we have, would you like to, shall we take it, Doctor?
If you are okay, I'm okay.
So a quick one, maybe. Yes, Mr. Sarvanan, would you like to come unmute and...
Yeah, hi. Hello, doctor.
Hello, sir. Good evening.
Yeah, hi, good evening. I just want to know, I know a relative of mine. So the person is in this almost touching around 50 plus. So a person wrestling between, personal and professional arena. So he led into a mechanical life and traveled across. And the person currently is at overseas. And the person did not settle well. So, but his level of anxiety is day by day it is worsening kind of. So, is it something like how can he cope up with anxiety and stress to reach that expectation, whatever he is, to lead into a peaceful life or something? Should there be any suggestion that any spiritual guru he has to go or consult a psychologist or a best friend, a best pal? What would be your suggestion on this?
So all of them can be helpful, but the choice has to be made by him.
Okay.
He can start with friends, and if it doesn't work, go to others and see which combination may work for him.
Okay.
If his self efforts are not resulting in what he desires, then reaching out to whichever level he would like to try so that he achieves his goal will be great. And that's all I can say on this platform.
But doctor, what I want is, would every person be reaching, would be facing the same issue after reaching that 50 plus or something, or would every person, including me or my family members, would also undergo this one? Or
Sir, whenever we reach around 50, there is always some kind of a crisis in life.
okay, okay,
Some people call it midlife crisis. For
okay,
some, it is dramatic. For some, it is smooth. But
okay,
every 5 to 7 years, we are moving into a new chapter of our life.
okay,
There are then potentialities there. There are pitfalls there. It's
okay,
highly individualized. So by talking to a coach or a friend, certain things can become clear if it is professional. If it is too personal, then and it is not resolved through these conversations, then professional consultation will help.
okay, okay, okay. Fine. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. So before I do, I think I'll just briefly put to summarize the extent of conversations that happened, doctor, the amount of knowledge that he shared and the practical approaches, along with the questions that came up and the additional information and knowledge that happened. I would like to only probably leave with a few words, which if they remain in our mind and heart, can always bring a certain positivity. So doctor used the words hope and possibility. Okay. Strive to flourish and to be resilient. And one of the biggest takeaway for me has been the dimension of acceptance of what is. So what is happening, the first step is acceptance. We cannot sit on judgment or even try to control, probably flourish and be resilient, looking at it like an opportunity and taking the right appropriate steps to keep it going and not fall into the situation that it can has a potential to pull us down. I think rise and shine would be one of the other phrases I would like to leave. Live fully. Every day is a gift. Die with peace and dignity. I think celebrate death. In one of his line which doctor uses, celebrate death, celebration also, which is people who are actually at a stage when they are about to pass on. I think let them go with peace and dignity and, and above all, celebrate life. I think these are the words I would like to leave with. If anything I missed out, doctor, probably you are expert in reframing, summarizing. So you could add on to this. I think this positivity, a note of positivity, I would like to request doctor if you have anything else to share as a closing remark.
No, Sharada, I don't have anything to share except to thank you for conducting so well and summarizing so well. It is a pleasure and very stimulating for me to interact with everybody. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here and sharing with us. I know it's 7:30. Well, okay. It's worth it. I think spending the time. Suresh, thank you. And would you like to say something before we...
Thank you so much, Sharada, for moderating session. And thank you, Dr. Prashantham, for such an, what should I say, inspiring, knowledgeable session. Gave us such practical tips to navigate this so-called challenging period that all of us are experiencing on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to apply. And I think I was sharing with Srini, my partner, that sleep is what I want to do more, to rejuvenate, rebuild. So some of your advice and music and all that therapies, aromatherapy, music therapy, we must use this to our best of our effort at this time. So, thank you all for your participation. And like I mentioned, for those of you, we'll put this in the hub, the recording line in the CFI hub. For those who have shared the email IDs, we will send them a recording link. So thank you.
Thank you. Good night. Stay safe. Bye. Thank you, doctor. Thank you, Suresh.
Thank you very much, Ms. Radha.